They saw the scar and shook their heads. A jagged butterfly-shaped mark across a suburban mom's forearm at the local grocery store. Surely just an accident, but they didn't know what it meant or where it came from. Not yet. They thought she was just another soccer mom, just a woman with graying hair and a strange scar, until a homeless veteran caught a glimpse of her arm and saluted first. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Sunrise Market in Denver, Colorado. A typical American suburb where SUVs lined up at soccer practice and neighbors knew each other's names. Rows of shopping carts sat waiting. Families strolled, chatted, laughed. And in the background, walking unnoticed between cereal aisles, was a woman in faded jeans, with her sleeves rolled high and reusable bags in hand. And Sarah Mitchell, 42, retired. The kind of civilian no one looked twice at. Her sneakers were worn, her shopping list organized, her voice soft but direct. She carried no identification of her past. She lived nowhere near military bases. And aside from one small visible detail, an intricately scarred butterfly mark just above her right wrist, she was invisible. "She's got some gnarly scar on her arm," one of the teenage cashiers muttered during break. "What happened? Kitchen accident?" Laughter followed. Sarah ignored it. As always, she moved through Sunrise Market like a ghost. Well-liked by the elderly shoppers, invisible to the store managers, and considered utterly forgettable by the young employees who rang up her groceries. Until Tuesday, it was supposed to be just another grocery run. A beat-up Honda pulled into the parking lot. 3 figures stepped out, all in worn military surplus, bearded and weathered and silent. Veteran types, the kind of men who spoke with their eyes and made the checkout lines feel smaller when they entered. Sarah was standing at the deli counter when they approached. The lead man looked her up and down. "You the one hogging the turkey?" he asked, words slurred with alcohol. "Energojaft to apente re-way," she replied without blinking. He smirked. "Didn't ask for your life story, lady." "Butterfly scar," one of the younger vets chuckled. "Man, I've seen tougher marks on a Barbie doll." Still, she stepped aside when her order was ready. Her posture remained calm. Her expression stayed neutral. But then something changed. The last man stepped forward. He was older than the others. White hair at the temples, eyes like burnt steel. And the patches on his jacket were faded, but his bearing wasn't. He froze when he saw her. Not her, her scar. The store went quiet. He straightened, blinked once, then slowly raised his hand in a formal salute. The other veterans stared. "Jimmy," one of them asked. "What the hell?" But the older man didn't break his gaze, didn't drop his salute. Sarah hesitated just for a moment, then returned it. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" he asked, voice low. She nodded. He leaned in and whispered 4 words no one expected to hear, "And you were at Kandahar." Every muscle in the store tightened. The people who had been ignoring her now stood still, staring at the butterfly scar on her wrist. It wasn't just a mark. It was a symbol, coded, earned only by members of a classified joint operation, known only by code name Operation Monarch. A mission that went off books 8 years ago and left 31 operatives unaccounted for. Everyone had presumed them dead, and Sarah Mitchell was one of them. How are you still civilian?" the younger vet asked, this time with no sarcasm. But Sarah didn't answer. She was already walking toward the exit, leaving her groceries behind. The older veteran remained standing, eyes still locked on the doors she'd disappeared through. "She's not just civilian," he muttered. "She's the reason I made it home." The rest of the men didn't laugh anymore. The next morning came like a slap to the face. Sarah arrived at Tommy's soccer practice at 8 o'clock sharp. Still in standard mom uniform, yoga pants and oversized sweatshirt, still carrying the weight of every curious stare glued to her back. The whispers hadn't died down, they'd multiplied. Someone had seen the salute in the grocery store. Word spread through the suburban network like wildfire. A few parents huddled near the sidelines, shooting glances her direction. She didn't flinch, didn't avoid them, didn't say a word. She walked to the bleachers, set down her coffee, and sat at the very edge, facing the field. It would have been another morning of silence, if not for the two fathers who approached 5 minutes later. Brad Stevens and Mike Torres, both weekend warriors, both known to be vocal about military matters despite never serving. They'd seen the grocery store incident posted on neighborhood social media, snickered. Then Stevens said, not quietly, "Looks like her scar has more story than her minivan." A burst of laughter. Sarah placed her coffee down slowly. Her shoulders relaxed, but her hands didn't move. Torres approached, pointing at her visible scar with his index finger. "This you?" he asked loud enough for half the parents to hear. Sarah didn't respond. He stepped closer. "You think having that mark makes you some kind of soldier? Makes you one of them? You're wearing history you didn't earn." Still no response. And Stevens leaned in. "Let me guess. Your husband was military. You got that in some domestic accident and made up a story." Sarah looked up at him, eyes clear, steady, calm. "No," she said flatly, "but my CO wore coordinates like these tattooed on his chest the day we breached a compound in Afghanistan. I was point." Torres froze. "What did you say?" Sarah stood up slowly, her back straight, her coffee untouched. "You've had your laugh. Now let me speak with someone who knows what that mark means." Then, for the first time since moving to the neighborhood, she marched straight across the soccer field. And every parent's conversation paused mid-sentence. Sarah didn't break stride until she reached the man sitting alone at the far end of the bleachers. Colonel Dean Marcus, retired, a man with salt and pepper hair and a faded Marine Corps tattoo on his forearm, looked up from his newspaper as she approached. "Sarah Mitchell," she said, "requesting permission to clarify my record." He gestured for her to speak. She pulled up her sleeve fully, exposing the complete scar. It wasn't random. It was precise coordinates burned into flesh, forming a butterfly pattern. Marcus's eyes widened. "In Operation Monarch," she said quietly. "Kandahar Province, 2016. I was Butterfly 6, designated marksman, under Captain Jennifer Hayes, Marine Force Recon." Marcus blinked. That operation was classified beyond my clearance." Sarah leaned in. "I was attached under JSOC's Deep Vector program. I was the last operative out of Compound 7 when the Taliban overran our position. This mark," she touched the scar, "that's from the IED that should have killed me. Only 4 of us had coordinates burned in. The others are buried in Arlington." Marcus didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stood up, set down his newspaper, and saluted. Everyone on the soccer field stopped moving. Through the chain-link fence, dozens of parents saw it happen. Colonel Marcus, decorated Vietnam veteran, respected community leader, saluting the soccer mom they'd all dismissed. And Sarah returned the salute, crisp and exact. Then she turned and walked back toward her son's game. But the moment the other parents saw her again, things changed. Stevens and Torres were both silent, standing awkwardly near the concession stand like kids caught cheating. One parent mumbled, "She's Butterfly 6. Another whispered, "That op was classified." I thought those missions were myths. Sarah walked past all of them, past the spot where they'd confronted her. She didn't say a word, but the silence she left behind was louder than all their whispers. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was full-scale neighborhood investigation. By noon, half the suburb was researching Operation Monarch online, finding nothing but redacted documents and conspiracy theories. Nobody had ever seen Colonel Marcus salute a civilian, let alone stand while doing it. And the fact that he'd offered no explanation, that made it worse. And Sarah Mitchell had returned to her daily routine like nothing had happened. Same yoga pants, same coffee runs, same expressionless calm at the grocery store. But to everyone else, she had suddenly become the neighborhood's unsolved mystery. Mike Torres showed up at Colonel Marcus's front door that evening. "She's lying," he said flatly. "Some scar and a sob story don't make her special forces. That operation, Monarch, it's not even in public records. Colonel Marcus didn't look up from the garden he was tending. That's because you don't have the clearance. I'm a Marine reservist with 12 years of weekend duty. Sit down, Torres." Torres hesitated, then obeyed, settling on the porch steps. And Marcus set down his gardening gloves. "This isn't a lie. That mark on her arm." He rolled up his own sleeve, revealing a faded eagle, globe, and anchor. I've only seen coordinates like that burned into flesh once before. In a classified briefing about operatives who volunteered for the deepest missions, Torres paled slightly. That scar? I've only seen it documented once, Marcus said, on Captain Jennifer Hayes, the commander who held that compound for 6 hours against impossible odds. The day she died, Butterfly 6 carried 3 wounded Marines to the extraction point under enemy fire. Guess who that was? Torres didn't answer. Colonel Marcus picked up his gloves again. You mocked a ghost, Mike, and she had the grace not to destroy you for it. Meanwhile, across the neighborhood, Sarah became the target of different attention. Respectful nods, hesitant apologies. The same parents who had whispered now gave her space. Some tried to offer thanks, badly. Others simply avoided eye contact altogether. But Sarah wasn't interested in being understood. She wasn't there to make friends. She was there to raise her son quietly, exactly as she had been trying to do. But that quiet didn't last. Not when General Patricia Cavanaugh arrived in the neighborhood the next morning in an unmarked sedan. The general didn't announce herself. She simply appeared at Sarah's front door at 0800 hours, waited for the door to open, and within 5 minutes they were sitting in Sarah's kitchen. "You're Mitchell?" the general asked, studying her over a cup of coffee. "Yes, ma'am." She held up a tablet displaying classified documents. "Do you know what kind of attention this brings when your name surfaces in civilian networks?" Sarah nodded. "I didn't reveal anything operational. They mocked the scar. I didn't explain it until I was cornered." The general sighed. "That salute from Marcus wasn't yours to control." "No, ma'am, but I followed protocol. I gave no classified information." The room went silent. General Cavanaugh finally set the tablet down. "Jennifer Hayes trusted you," she said softly. "She signed your deep cover clearance herself. You saved 3 Marines that night, Mitchell." "That makes this personal," Sarah nodded, saying nothing. The general leaned forward. "The neighborhood knows something now. We can't put that back in the box. So here's what's going to happen. You maintain your cover, but if anyone threatens your family or your peace, you call this number." She slid a card across the table. "Some sacrifices shouldn't be forgotten." "I haven't forgotten, ma'am." "Good." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "You may not wear the uniform anymore, but you were deeper in the black than most of them will ever be. Don't let them make you forget that." "I won't." General Cavanaugh exited without another word. By that afternoon, a silent transformation had rippled through the neighborhood. The butterfly scar was no longer a curiosity. It was a legend walking among them. But Sarah, she still drove carpool, still attended PTA meetings, still stood on soccer sidelines. Same yoga pants, same coffee, same quiet focus on her son's happiness. But now, when neighbors passed by, they nodded with respect. And she, the one they had once dismissed, sometimes didn't even acknowledge them because she was never there for recognition. She was there for the moment no one else expected. The moment when danger came to their quiet suburb. It was 2:47 a.m. when the first scream shattered the suburban stillness. Then came a second, then breaking glass. The entire neighborhood jolted awake as 911 lines lit up with fragmented reports. Possible break-in on Maple Street. No. Multiple break-ins. Armed suspects. Oh God, they have masks. Dispatch. We have reports of armed intruders in Sunset Hills subdivision. Multiple residences. No visual on law enforcement response. And then the power grid failed. Every streetlight in the eastern section died in sequence. Security cameras went dark. Alarm systems froze mid-warning. Every house plunged into darkness except one, 1247 Maple Street, where Sarah Mitchell lived, where backup power kept a single light burning. She didn't panic, didn't fumble for her phone. Instead, she moved with fluid precision to her bedroom closet, removed a hidden panel, and retrieved items that hadn't seen light for 8 years. Tactical gear, night vision, and a weapon that officially didn't exist. Her breath didn't quicken. Her hands didn't shake. But her eyes, they sharpened with a focus her neighbors had never seen. Through the night vision scope, she counted them. 6 figures moving house to house, armed, organized, wrong. This wasn't random crime. This was military precision. Sarah activated the emergency beacon hidden in her jewelry box, the one that bypassed all civilian networks and connected directly to a hardened military frequency. Static. The line was compromised. En semahast olo en donwana. That was it then. No backup, no local police, no cavalry coming. Just her and them. The first intruder reached the Hendersons' house next door and kicked in the front door. Sarah heard Mrs. Ann Henderson scream. Without hesitation, Sarah exited through her back door and moved through shadows like smoke. The tactical movement wasn't suburban mom. It was surgical, fluid, lethal. By the time the intruder emerged from the Hendersons' house, she was already positioned behind him. A single whispered command stopped him cold. "On your knees." He spun, raising his weapon. Too late. The engagement was silent, precise, final, and 5 left. Sarah moved to the next house, then the next. Each contact was textbook. Position, isolate, neutralize. No wasted motion, no unnecessary force, no mercy for those who threatened innocence. 20 minutes later, when the backup generators at the police station finally kicked in and patrol cars began arriving, they found 6 bodies scattered across 4 houses and 1 woman sitting calmly on her front porch, weapon disassembled, hands visible. Detective Ray Morrison was among the first on scene. When he reached Sarah's house, he stopped cold. No tactical gear visible. No signs of the engagement that had just occurred. Just a suburban mom in pajamas and a robe. "Ma'am, are you injured?" he asked. "No, detective, but you'll want to check the other houses." The threats have been neutralized. Morrison looked around at the scene. "You did this? Alone?" She nodded calmly. No time to wait for backup. They were threatening families. Another voice spoke from behind them. General Kavanaugh, arriving in an unmarked vehicle, face grim. "That scar," she said quietly. It wasn't just a mark of service. It was a promise. Word spread like wildfire. 6 armed intruders neutralized by a suburban mom before law enforcement could even mobilize. FBI investigation would later confirm they were part of a domestic terror cell testing vulnerabilities in American neighborhoods, specifically targeting military families. They expected no resistance, and certainly not from someone they'd identified as a soft civilian target. Certainly not from her. In the days that followed, Sarah Mitchell was offered federal protection, relocation, reinstatement of her security clearance with honors. She refused most of it, but she accepted one thing: to remain right where she was, in her quiet neighborhood, watching over families who had no idea how close they'd come to losing everything. And the scar, they don't stare at it anymore. They understand it. Because now when neighbors see it as she walks by, they don't whisper, "accident." They whisper, "guardian." And if you ask what the butterfly pattern means, they'll tell you it doesn't mark who she was. It marks who's still protecting them when everyone else has gone to sleep. The grocery store veterans, they shop there every Tuesday now, not for food, but to see her, to nod respectfully, to remember that some guardians never really retire. And Sarah Mitchell? She still drives carpool, still attends soccer games, still lives the quiet suburban life she fought to protect. But now the neighborhood sleeps a little easier, knowing that some butterflies are born from fire and some scars are earned in darkness so that others can live in light. If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden heroes walking among us. What do you think was the real reason she chose to stay invisible? Drop your theories in the comments.